She learned the sound of rejection before she learned her own name. The day her mother sold her, the mountains watched in silence as if even stone could not bear witness. The girl was called Mara then, though no one spoke it with kindness. She was thin as a winter branch, her left leg twisted from a fever she'd survived but never truly escaped. In a valley where strength meant survival, she was considered a burden long before she could understand what that word meant. Her mother had once held her like something precious, or so Mara liked to believe, but memory is a fragile thing when hunger sharpens every edge of life. The winter that broke them all came early. Snow crept down the slopes like a slow, merciless tide swallowing pasture and promise alike. Crops failed. Livestock died. Men argued in whispers, women cried behind closed doors, and children learned to be quiet. Mara's mother stopped looking at her directly then, as if avoiding eye contact could erase responsibility. The trader arrived at dawn, his wagon rattling like bones tied together. He smelled of leather and cold metal, and his eyes never lingered on faces, only hands, backs, teeth. He assessed people the way others assessed horses. Mara stood beside her mother, clutching the hem of a threadbare shawl, unaware that her life had already been priced. "She's lame," the trader said flatly after one glance. "Useless for field work, maybe a kitchen hand, maybe less." Her mother nodded too quickly. "She eats little." The trader shrugged. "So do rats." Mara didn't cry. She watched her mother's lips move, watched a pouch of coins change hands, watched the rope loop gently, but firmly, around her wrist. The final thing she heard before the wagon lurched forward was her mother's voice, sharp with something like relief. "She won't survive the winter anyway." The word stayed with her, long after the road swallowed the sound of hooves. The journey north was cold, brutal, and silent. Mara learned how pain could live inside her leg like a second bone, how hunger could hollow out thought itself. The trader barely acknowledged her existence, tossing her scraps when convenient, cursing when she slowed him down. When her leg gave out one afternoon and she fell into the snow, he struck her with the flat of his whip, not hard enough to kill, but hard enough to teach fear. They reached the mountain pass just as a storm rolled in, black and roaring. Wind tore at the wagon canvas, snow blinding the world into nothingness. The trader cursed loudly, trying to force the horses onward. Mara slipped again, the rope yanking her forward, pain exploding through her hip. That was when the horses spooked. A crack of thunder split the sky. One horse reared, snapping a harness strap. The wagon lurched sideways, wheels skidding toward the ravine's edge. The trader shouted, frantic now, trying to cut the ropes free. The storm answered with another thunderclap. Then came a voice, deep, steady, and utterly calm. "Let go of the girl." The trader turned, whip raised, eyes wild. Out of the white chaos emerged a man wrapped in furs, broad-shouldered, bearded, carrying a rifle older than memory. Snow clung to him as if he were part of the mountain itself. "This ain't your business," the trader spat. The man's gaze dropped to Mara, tangled in rope, shaking not just from cold but terror. His jaw tightened. "Everything up here is my business." The trader sneered. "She's useless, crippled, paid for and—" The rifle came up, not aimed but present, a promise without words. The trader hesitated. Mountains bred men like this, men who didn't bluff, men who didn't hurry. He weighed coin against risk, life against convenience. With a curse, he cut the rope and shoved Mara forward. "Take her," he said bitterly. "She'll die on you." The mountain man stepped forward, catching Mara before she fell again. His arms were solid, warm, and real. She felt the rope fall away, felt the trader retreat into the storm, felt something unfamiliar press against her ribs. "Safety." The man carried her without comment, cradled against his chest as if she weighed nothing at all. They moved uphill away from the pass, toward a cabin hidden among pines thick with snow. Inside, firelight flickered against rough-hewn walls, and the smell of pine resin and dried meat wrapped around her like a blanket. He laid her near the fire, removed her soaked boots with surprising gentleness, and wrapped her in furs. He handed her a cup of warm broth, watching silently until she drank. "What's your name?" he asked at last. She hesitated. Names had power, and hers had only ever been used to call her trouble. Still, she whispered it. "Mara." He nodded once. "I'm Rowan." That was all. Rowan did not ask where she came from or why she was alone. He did not question her limp or test her worth. He fed her, tended the bruises on her wrist, and let her sleep for nearly 2 days straight. When she woke, the storm had passed, leaving the world clean and bright outside the cabin window. Mara expected the kindness to end. It always did. But Rowan simply handed her food and showed her how to sit near the fire without burning herself. He moved slowly, deliberately, as if the world demanded patience. Days turned into weeks. Mara learned the rhythms of mountain life, how Rowan rose before dawn, how he checked traps and chopped wood, how he spoke to the land in quiet ways she couldn't explain. He taught her small tasks at first, sorting dried herbs, mending nets, stirring stews. When her leg hurt too much, he told her to rest without complaint. One afternoon, she finally asked the question that had lodged in her chest like a splinter. "Why didn't you leave me?" Rowan looked at her then, really looked, his dark eyes steady. "Because no one should be sold like an animal." She swallowed. "My mother said I was useless." He snorted softly. "The mountain doesn't care how straight your leg is. It cares if you pay attention." He began teaching her things no one else had bothered to teach. How to read the sky for weather changes. How to recognize plants that healed and those that harmed. How to listen, not just hear, but listen, to the way the forest warned before danger came. Mara discovered that her hands were quick, her memory sharp. She learned to carve small tools, to weave snares that didn't require brute strength. Rowan adapted tasks without comment, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Her leg never straightened, but it grew stronger. He crafted a brace from leather and wood, fitted carefully to her frame. With it, she could walk farther, stand longer. Each step felt like a quiet rebellion against every word that had once defined her. Years passed in the mountains, marked not by calendars but by seasons. Mara grew from a frightened child into a young woman shaped by wind and resilience. She laughed more. She spoke with confidence. When traders passed through the lower valleys, she no longer hid. One spring, a group of men arrived at the cabin, armed and suspicious. They'd heard rumors of a mountain man harboring someone unclaimed. They spoke of ownership, of laws written far from peaks and snow. Rowan stood in the doorway, unmoving. Mara stood beside him, spine straight, brace visible beneath her skirt. "She's with me," Rowan said. One man sneered, "She's lame." Mara met his gaze without flinching. "And you're small-minded." The men left without testing Rowan's resolve. That night Mara sat by the fire, hands trembling, not with fear but with something fierce and bright. She realized then that she had not just been saved, she had been chosen. Years later, when her mother's village fell on hard times again, a woman climbed the mountain seeking aid. Hunger had etched deep lines into her face. When she reached the cabin and looked up, recognition flickered, followed by shame so heavy it bent her spine. "Mara," she whispered. Mara felt the old wound stir, but it no longer ruled her. She looked at Rowan, then back at the woman who had once called her useless. "You can stay the night," Mara said calmly. "There's food." Her mother wept then, not from relief, but from the weight of everything she had lost by giving up what mattered most. The mountain had taken a discarded child and shaped her into something unbreakable. And in saving her, a lone mountain man had found something too, a family forged not by blood or bargain, but by the simple, radical act of seeing worth where others refused to look. Long after the world forgot the trader and the winter that broke a valley, the mountains remembered. They always do.